What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Punk Goes Crunk. This is basically a series in the Punk Goes volumes. I reviewed one of these last fall, which was Punk Goes Pop Volume 2. That had a lot of hits. They did like Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl and those type hits. But now these are kind of more rap oriented. So I wanted to get to this. It's because I wanted to see some punk and kind of more like punk rock kind of sounding rap songs and see what they could do with it. It was definitely interesting. I like the concept behind these Punk Ghost series. It's a pretty clever thing I do like. I mean, the problem with it, at least last time I knew some of, like on the Punk Goes Pop Volume 2, I knew some of the artists on there. Like I know like Breathe Carolina did something, I think Escape the Fate or something like that. I want to say that there were a few folks that I knew, but this time I really did not, I couldn't have picked out any of these folks from the crowd before. But they do some pretty solid jobs. I would definitely have to say that I like the concept behind a lot of these. I mean, I gave Punk Goes Pop Volume 2 a 10 out of 10. This one's not going to get a 10 out of 10, but there is more than half the album that's pretty solitary. That's pretty good stuff. So I like the concepts, but we'll get into the critique of it as time goes along. We'll get to that. But there was at least one single, and this single is Umbrella, and it is by All Time Low, and it is basically a cover of a Rihanna song. So Rihanna did this song in 2007. It was pretty big pop kind of R&B type song back in like the spring of 2007, and it was just one of the more, it hit number one. It was a pretty definitive hit. It's one of Rihanna's biggest hits. I think even today it's probably one of her signature songs that probably most people want her to perform. all time low kind of All Time Low kind of turned it into like this really kind of up tempo punk song. If you've heard something out of Blink 182 or like Good Charlotte or one of those type folks, and trying to think of some other punk artists, like even I would say like recent MGK, it kind of has that kind of feel towards it. It's something that's really kind of punk related. For some reason, like the punk artists are just not coming to me right now, but it does have like a real kind of like definite kind of Good Charlotte type feel towards it, like Fountains of Wayne, that type stuff. Just that kind of like chorus. I mean, it doesn't feel anything like the original Umbrella. It definitely just feels like Umbrella was always like a punk song. I mean, you listen to the song and you'd have no clue if you haven't already heard the song Umbrella, that it was actually kind of like a pop, R&B type tune that was pretty central on the radio back in the late 2000s. That's definitely a pretty good hook to just pretty good for All Time Low to be able to turn this song into like a definitive kind of punk song. I mean, it stands on its own, and the cover. I mean, the only thing that's really noticeable about it being a cover song are just the lyrics. It's just an ode to Rihanna. But other than that, you might not even have a clue that this was a punk song, or this was not a punk song. So that's kind of the concept. It's a great song. I really enjoyed it. This kind of the feel that I got from it kind of reminded me of just getting ready to get started with your night, that type stuff. This kind of mid mid afternoon, kind of heading into evening type feel towards it. Just something excited, just got off work, something like that, just ready for like to begin things, that kind of concept. That's what I got from it. I would say now the rest of this project, I'll go ahead and list the songs out of 15 that I recommend to you. So we'll get to these. So this would the 8 songs would be "Got Your Money," which is a parody of Old Dirty Bastard's "Got Your Money" by Say Anything. "Umbrella," which is a parody of Rihanna's "Umbrella" by All Time Low. I just talked about that one. "Nothing But a G Thing," parody of Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre's "Nothing But a G Thing" by The Escape Frame. "I Wanna Love You," which is by Snoop Dogg and Akon by the rock artist or rock band The Maine. "California Love" by Tupac and Dr. Dre and Roger Troutman, which is by American Heart this time around. Yeah, that's number 5. Number 6 is "Kryptonite" by the Purple Ribbon All Stars, which is basically Big Boy's group. Big Boy from Outkast had a subgroup back in the day, and that's by Emmanuel. And "Still Fly" by Big Timers, and the cover is by The Devil Wears Prada. And then "Gin and Juice" by Snoop Dogg, and the cover artist is Hot Rod Circuit. So that's a lot. So kind of talk about some of these. I feel like Still Fry is pro. I feel like Still Fly is probably the craziest song on here. This has like the screamo vocals, and they turn it into like a real kind of screamo and kind of metal song almost. Definite headbanging masterpiece on here. I definitely feel like you can get pretty crazy to that. This is another one that just felt like it was always like a rock song or something, but it's a big timer song from the early 2000s. Birdman and Manny Fresh, and that's kind of the concept. But it fits so evenly with rock music. They just did an outstanding job of making that like a pretty stellar mosh pit screamo kind of song. Gin and Juice by Hot Rod Circuit. I wasn't expecting this one. This really feels like you're slanted as hell off of Gin and Juice. It's interesting to kind of get rock songs that are kind of tilted towards being fucked up and completely juiced up on like liquor or something like that, because it's not every day. Like Metallica doesn't always do that, and like AC/DC doesn't always do that, and like folks like that, Blink 182, some of those folks, they don't always kind of get to that pitch. But I do like the concept. It just really feels like you're completely leaned out on this. I just really like the production that Hot Rod Circuit kind of gave this. It really worked extremely well. So if you're looking for a song to kind of get slanted to, that's a great one. I would recommend not just starting up, but kind of already being a little bit drunk and then listening to it. It'll just really, I mean, I can't even see listening to that song sober in most cases. It just doesn't. I mean, it works. It's a good song either way, but it's my recommendation to be buzzed when you listen to it. And Kryptonite by Emmanuel really has like a nice night type feel. It's another one that's kind of surprising that it wasn't always like a rock song, just because of how good like they make the production on the song and the instrumentation with the guitars and stuff on there. It's definitely perfect fit for a rock song. I just feel like I wasn't expecting Kryptonite, because I remember that song by Big Boy back in the day. Wasn't expecting that one to kind of have like such a Surrept kind of feel in terms of being a rock song, but it works. I Want to Love You is kind of very similar to Umbrella, or this one kind of feels more. I mean, I would say Umbrella kind of felt more of like a mid afternoon, late afternoon kind of feel, but I Want to Love You definitely feels like an after work, 6 o'clock, 6:30 p.m. type stuff, getting ready to go hang out with your girlfriend type feel. But definitely have to kind of say it's got a nice evening pitch and just ready to kind of get things started with the night and that kind of feel towards it. But it's not a club song. I mean, I Want to Love You by Snoop Dogg and Akon was more of a club bop. They intended it that way, but it kind of becomes more of like a almost not post grunge, but just kind of after work post grunge kind of feel, where it's just kind of more like getting ready to get started with the night, as opposed to like it being like an in the club. I was surprised that they did that. I almost at first I was kind of wondering about this song, just because I remember the original I Want to Fuck You song by Akon and Snoop Dogg being more club oriented, but I like what they turned it into. It's still pretty good pitch. It's kind of more just getting off work, getting ready to get started with your night kind of feel. Nothing But a G Thing is a real surprising one. This one feels like it's rooted in like 70s disco. It's interesting that this is barely has the feel of a rock out. This barely has the feel of a rock song, and I really like the kind of disco electronic kind of feel that song had. There's really no other song like it on here. They really turned Nothing But a G Thing into like a mild kind of mid-tempo club bop, which I appreciated. Definitely like the pitch in that one. It's a surprise hit. And then Got Your Money is a really good song. Like Say Anything did a great job with that. It's just like if you can picture like a sardonic kind of white dude saying the lyrics to like Old Dirty Bastard and his crazy type pitch that he had and Got Your Money. I mean, it's kind of like the lyrics are kind of like spicy, just because Old Dirty Bastard is such a crazy individual. But the guy who's from Say Anything that did this song, he's pretty good handling the vocals also. I mean, it's just the way that his deliverance of saying it is just great. I mean, it really kind of feels like this could be like, I mean, it can be play. I feel like he did such a good job with it to be able to follow up Old Dirty Bastard, who typically has like a very crazy, larger than life type feel. And it's just a good song to be able to see that it's easily can be played in clubs and that type of stuff. I would definitely say I could see it at like a kind of off the wall, off kilter kind of nightclub in that sort of sense. It's interesting kind of get that. So that was like a surprise hit there. Definitely worked extremely well. And it's just night venue oriented overall. That's kind of the concept. So there's just a lot of those. Talk about some of the ones I didn't enjoy. Like there were some ones on here I kind of felt like The I Wish song by Secret Handshake was kind of cheesy. It just was talking about I wish blah 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 I was taller and that type stuff. I found that one kind of odd. I didn't like Put Your Hood Up. Like, considering that this album is named after Crunk, you would have thought that there would have been a better rendition of Lil Jon songs, but Lil Jon is barely on here, and he's kind of underrepresented on this project. And the song that they did attempt to do with Lil Jon in mind just didn't really work that well. I mean, it was trying to be like a hard rock kind of tune, but I kind of felt like the execution of that one probably could have stood to have been better, just because like I would have definitely taken like a crazier, like I think maybe Bia Bia would have been a better choice, or something that could have, I feel like Bia Bia or something like that, or I Don't Give a Fuck probably would have been a better choice, just to kind of make that in a more, like, I noticed that a lot of the folks on this album really hesitate to kind of make like more club oriented music. It feels like a lot of them kind of turn down the idea of making something more electronic and night venue kind of induced, and they just kind of, I mean, I know it's rock oriented, but I would have liked to have seen like a rock club type feel and seen what they could have done with it. And I definitely feel like for a Little John song they needed to do that, but it just kind of comes off as more of like just a hard rock kind of tune that didn't quite, was not as fluid as it needed to be. And Notorious Thugs just really felt like just like a cover, just a pretty simple, not even rock oriented kind of cover of like the Notorious Thug song by Biggie. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't have enough distinction for me. It just felt really kind of plain and just kind of sing. It was just basically Notorious Thugs, just someone singing the lyrics of all four of the rappers on the song. So it just was not quite inventive or distinct enough to really make a difference. I feel like probably the original Notorious Thugs is way better. I mean, it's kind of haunting. It just kind of gives off this leery, kind of looming kind of feel, but it's a lengthy song at over seven, almost 7.5 minutes, and it's just kind of, it's just a plain sing-songy cover. I mean, I almost gave this an almost song, but I just feel like it's pretty plain Jane as far as that kind of goes. And Hey Ya, I don't know, didn't enjoy the tempo of that one. Didn't really like the song Tennessee by Arrested Development. So there were some of these, like there's another one in here, the Seed 2.0. I don't know the roots that well, so some of these just didn't connect as well as far as trying to get some of these. I feel like the Hey Ya song by Outkast is kind of difficult to duplicate, just because the elastic kind of energy of that song, especially. I mean, get Andre 3000 just got lightning in a bottle just way too well to kind of see that one be replicated. I just don't think the energy on that one could have been replicated. And some, like I said, some of these other songs, the Root song and the Arrested Development song, I really don't even know if I would like the original version of these songs. They just didn't come off as like a further interest of that. But yeah, so I would have to say me liking 8 out of 15. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album a 6.75 out of 10. I feel like there's definitely some great moments on here. The Umbrella is a really good surprise hit. I definitely like the Got Your Money, Old Dirty Bastard cover. I really like the Nothing But a G Thing one. That's a nice kind of disco electronic one. Kryptonite is a lot of fun. Gin and Juice is a lot of fun if you're drunk a little bit. And Still Fly is just probably one of the best songs on here, just with the sheer craziness and screamo vocals that it gets to. And California Love, I forgot to talk about that one. That's another one. California Love, kind of, really, this one is pretty like looming and kind of club oriented. I definitely liked the chorus on here. They did a great job. And then the second half of the song, from Tupac's verse forward, just kind of shifts into like the second half of the song kind of switches out into electronica, kind of sprawling, hazed out kind of vocals, just doing Tupac's verse and the rest of the song. But I do like it. Definitely had a lot of good energy. Really feels like a song that you could hear at a night venue. I mean, there are some night venue songs. I definitely feel like California Love, Got Your Money, Kryptonite, and probably Notorious Thugs are all ones for that. Yeah, I just would have to say that there are some stepping out moments. I'm going to go ahead and say that Notorious Thugs is, I don't know. I'm on the fence about whether or not I want to give Notorious Thugs an almost song and give this like a 7 out of 10, because I would say that 9 out of 15 is pretty good. I'm thinking that Notorious Thugs can kind of be the almost song, just because I did like the kind of loominess of it. So I don't have it written down, but I'm going to go ahead and say that the ninth song is Notorious Thugs by Scary Kids, Scaring Kids, and that's just kind of an almost song, which maybe I'll wind up liking more later. But it's just not a favorite of mine, I would just have to say. So I'll give this album a 7 out of 10. I'm going to revert the score. I mean, just upping it by 0.25% just to make it a 7. I kind of feel like it's good enough to be able to appreciate that. Just enough on here to really be able to say that. And I mean, the social score, I'm thinking that that's probably going to get like a 6 out of 10 because there are some moments like Kryptonite, Still Fly, California Love, Got Your Money, Nothing But a G Thing, Gin and Juice that really have like some great moments. And even Notorious Thugs kind of is a little bit sprawling for that, but it's just kind of they do, like I said, this as much as this album is crunk, and a lot of these songs that they chose, like "I Want to Fuck You" by Akon and "Kryptonite" by uh, Purple Ribbon All Stars, and like Gin and Juice, and some of these ones. I mean, they are not quite wholesomely club oriented. I mean, they really try some new angles and they step out just for more things intended than just a night venue. So I would have to say you can find these songs that do have their their extroversions, if that's, I don't know if that's a word, their extrovertedness and like stepping out kind of vibes towards it, but it's just kind of more concealed this time, where you just have to look for it and kind of be able to say that it's not quite, oh well, California Love is a club song, so that's an automatic club song. Like that's what I thought about Men in Black, but that kind of came off as more of like a kids kind of bop for them, and that just the younger set and that type stuff. But so just be warned that the ousting points for some of the social vibes, if you're thinking like certain songs are just going to be intended as like a night venue kind of VIP session, it's not quite as plain to see as that. And that's just kind of the remark about it. But it is still pretty good. I mean, I definitely give it above decent. I mean, a 7's pretty solid, and a 6 social is pretty good. It's just kind of, it's just not as flamboyant. I mean, I definitely feel like Punk Goes Pop Volume 2 had the electricity of a lot of social cuts on there and a lot of club oriented type stuff, but this album doesn't do that nearly to that degree. But it is fun. I mean, I'll definitely say some of these moments, California Love, Got Your Money, Umbrella, Nothing But a G Thing. I mean, these do have some pretty solid hits in there, so it's just kind of the thing. But yeah, so that should about wrap it up. In terms of the future, it's been a while since there's been like a Punk Goes type album. I'm kind of surprised that there haven't been more of these, just to kind of see that. But I think they did them at least until 2017, maybe 2018. But we need to get some of these back in the motion because I'd like to see more of these.